Hey, welcome back. Good to see you. Today we're going to talk about Phase 3. Specifically, we now know there will be no pre-nerf Black Temple in Mount Hyjal raids. That's right, we're going to go straight to the post-nerf versions of the raids only. Now in patch 2.2, a lot of nerfs were introduced, and I want to go through some of them, and I want you to decide for yourself if these nerfs were significant. Now Kaivax mentioned that since there weren't many changes made to these raids during the original Burning Crusade, that is why they are launching on the post-nerf state right away. So let's start with Mount Hyjal. The health of Jaina and Thrall have been increased. They should be able to absorb quite a bit more damage during the event. Seems like a minor change to me. No big deal there. Archimonde's red soul charge silence has been lowered in duration to 4 seconds from 6 seconds, and the death of a priest with Spirit of Redemption will no longer create 2 soul charges. Okay, so what is a soul charge if you don't know? Well, when anyone dies during the raid against Archimonde, Archimonde will gain a soul charge from the dead player. He can use the soul charge anytime after he gains it, and it kind of looks like a troll priest shadow guard ability, that purple glow circling him. And the effect of the soul charge use will depend on the class that died. So if it is a priest, a mage, or a warlock, it will deal 4,500 fire damage to everyone and silence for 4 seconds. Again, that is a nerf from 6 seconds. If a warrior, rogue, or paladin dies, it will deal 4,500 physical damage and apply a 4-second 50% damage taken increase debuff. That could be quite deadly. And if a druid, shaman, or hunter dies, it will deal 4,500 nature damage over 8 seconds and drain 2,250 mana. So, you can see if a priest dies and has Spirit of Redemption, then that is a total of 9,000 damage and 8 seconds worth of silence for the raid over the course of 2 soul charges, which can absolutely ruin anyone's day. Of course, it's not going to be all at once. I'm just saying combined, if that from that one death, that is the effect that you're going to have. So the post-nerf state, if a priest dies, will only grant Archimonde 1 soul charge instead of 2. Seems like a bug, so it seems like a good fix, but still, I think it could be significant. You know, priests could have adapted and maybe not chosen Spirit of Redemption, etc., but of course, that is the nerf. Additionally, the cast time of Archimonde's Fear was increased to 1.5 seconds, and he should now use his Fear ability on a much more consistent interval. Okay, so in pre-nerf, it was basically random. You really couldn't anticipate it. You could end up saving your cooldowns too long because it just didn't show up, or it showed up too often, or it was just totally random and unpredictable. So now post-nerf, there's a cast time to it, and it is more consistent. Also, Archimonde will no longer cast Grip of the Legion on very far away targets, so it doesn't have infinite range. You can outrange it. Grip of the Legion, by the way, it is a curse that deals 2,500 damage every 2 seconds for 5 whole minutes, so druids, mages, going to be on top of that to dispel that. Now, Archimonde has also received several adjustments and fixes to prevent some of the harder to counter combinations of his abilities. For example, Archimonde will no longer cast Grip of the Legion, that curse we just talked about, on targets that have just been hit with Air Burst. By the way, Air Burst, you just get hit for 3,000 damage and it knocks you high into the air. Then let's say you get Grip of the Legion, that curse could be enough to kill you outright, especially since when you're getting knocked up in the air and you're falling, you need to worry about using Tears of the Goddess, which slows your falling speed before you hit the ground and take even more damage. So, I mean, all of this sounds to me like pre-nerf was definitely harder than post-nerf, even though, I mean, there weren't a lot of changes made. It sounds like of the changes made, could be pretty significant. Seems like kind of helps with the RNG element, if you ask me, right? Like if a priest dies, it seems like a big deal compared to other classes, right? A priest with Spirit of Redemption. Let's move on to talk about some Black Temple nerfs. Now, we're going to start with Mother Sharaz. So, Saber Lash tanks will no longer be knocked back by Sinister Beam or hit by Fatal Attraction, even if they dodge or parry the attack. Okay, so what is Saber Lash? So, Saber Lash is a very frequently used frontal cleave with 20-yard range, and it does about 30,000 damage to plate wearers, but it is divided up between 3 targets. So imagine if you get Fatal Attraction on you, which will basically teleport you away and deal shadow damage to you, well, then you're not there to help soak the Saber Lash, and that could cause the other 2 Saber Lash tanks to die because you're not there to help soak up some of that damage. Now, the same thing with the Sinister Beam. It knocks you up out of the range of the Saber Lash, and you're not there to soak with your other 2 tanks. So this nerf makes it so that if Saber Lash was used on you, even if you dodge or parry that attack, you are immune to these abilities that could push you out of the range of soaking the next Saber Lash. So it seems like a big helpful nerf to me, because if your Saber Lash tanks die, sounds like the raid is going to wipe. Now, Mother Sharaz will now pick a new beam to cast every third beam instead of after every fifth, moving on to the next nerf. This means she is much less likely to cast the same beam many times in a row. If you ask me, this is kind of to eliminate RNG once again. So some beams are stronger than others. You've got Sinful Beam, which does 7 to 8k shadow damage. This is going to bounce to 30 players, 10 at a time. Sinister Beam is 3k shadow damage plus that knock-up for about 50% falling damage. Vile Beam, 3k shadow damage per tick over 8 seconds. And Wicked Beam, 4k shadow damage plus 1000 mana burn. So some of these beams are stronger than others. Making Mother Sharaz cast a new beam more frequently could help prevent getting really unlucky with the beams. Now, also another nerf is that Fatal Attraction now deals 750 damage on the first tick, 1500 on the second, 2250 on the third, and 3000 on the rest. So this is just a straight up damage reduction. It used to always be 3000 each tick, but you can see that could be kind of bursty, just every second taking 3000, right? So again, this is sort of just a straight up nerf. Now, the last ability, Prismatic Shield, was completely reworked. Specifically, Mother Sharaz now takes bonus damage from one school when she is resistant to the opposite. Her resistances now change randomly every 15 seconds and are capped at 25%. So, for example, Mother Sharaz could be resistant to Arcane, but taking bonus from Nature, and vice versa. Could be resistant to Holy, but taking bonus from Shadow. The same for Fire and Frost, being opposites. Before, she would just be resistant to a certain school of magic instead of taking bonus to the opposite. So I would consider this actually a pretty significant nerf. It's going to really help spellcasters who, would just get, their damage completely nerfed. Instead, now there's actually a bonus half to it. So I think that's a pretty significant nerf. And the last nerf was to Reliquary of the Lost. Spirit Shock and Rune Shield will no longer be able to be cast nearly simultaneously. There was a small but significant delay added between the two. So Spirit Shock does damage and confuses for 5 seconds, 5 whole seconds. So while Rune Shield absorbs 100,000 damage, it increases cast and attack speed by 100%. This is a shield that you want to get rid of ASAP, so you got to do that 100k as fast as you possibly can to get Rune Shield off. Spirit Shock being that 5-second confuse, you can see how having both of them used simultaneously could make things difficult, because if that Rune Shield is up too long, could cause problems for the raid. So with all these nerfs, you might be curious about actually attempting Pre-nerf BT and Hyjal. If you ask me, I'd kind of want to see what it's like. Sounds pretty tough, but also sounds kind of infuriating. I can imagine one of these random RNG things happening and just totally ruining your day, right? But Blizzard will not be adding it. And I'm wondering, is it because they're too lazy, or is it because these changes really weren't significant enough to be considered pre-nerf? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Do you think that pre-nerf was really just pre-bug fix, or was it actually a state of the game that people actually want to play? I'm not sure, honestly. So, although Black Temple and Hyjal won't have pre-nerf versions, Kaivax did mention that Sunwell Plateau will have the pre-nerf version on launch. So, for all those hardcore raiders, you have that to look forward to. Now, moving on from raiding, we have confirmation that the Incubus is in fact coming to TBC. Whether you like that or not, Summon Succubus will most likely be renamed to Summon Syad, apparently, and it looks like you could get a Succubus or Incubus at random when using that spell. And we know this because Blizzard just released a new low-resolution art for the Incubus, which inevitably is for the Burning Crusade. We'll have to see how things turn out, though, when Phase 3 goes live. That's all for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks, and take care.